Good afternoon. Welcome to the Educate2Trade Podcast once again with me, Chris Pollock.
Me, Zee.
How are you getting on today, Zee? Hot in London this week. How have you been doing?
Yeah, the heat wave is sort of taking up the sort of measures for everybody here, and we're sort of in our t-shirts and shorts and keeping it cool for now.
Yeah, I do like the shorts for about 6 months of the year. But yeah, needed at the moment. But it's been a bit of an unusual week this week, hasn't it? Maybe not given the amount that's been going on in the calendar. There's probably some things you might have thought might have moved markets, but there's been a few things that were probably red flags for the week ahead. Anyway, yeah, what's your major takeaway from the week, Zee? What's your big thing you've been looking at?
Well, the major takeaways was, I mean, like you had a week where you had sort of fund rates to be announced on Wednesday. You had, all these sorts of like hiccups with the war conflict happening with sort of Iraq and Israel. And you expect movements in the markets. And I think a lot of traders, we were in our DMs thinking on Saturday, the weekend, that we might see some movements, but it really was a flat week.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this on the call we do on Monday mornings, the kind of week ahead call. With the Fed looming on Wednesday night, often, certainly the Tuesday is pretty quiet, and the run up into the Fed is pretty kind of capped on a Wednesday too. So then at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, the Fed rate decision, 7:30, Powell comes to the altar, and then by 9 o'clock, it's a bank holiday in the US, effectively, and you're like, okay, well, all the fun had to be tried to be squeezed in there. And if you think about this from like a trading perspective, if you want to get trades on, you probably you're going to have to get them back off again by 9 o'clock. So whether there was going to be real volume put on into that Thursday bank holiday, Juneteenth, I hope you all celebrated in style. Yeah, it's been pretty dull week with the leading into Fed, then a bank holiday, and today's like a bridge day, right? The Friday, I mean, it's dead in here. It's too sunny for people on a Friday afternoon to be in the office, I think. Yeah, I mean, in the US, if there's a Thursday holiday, often they just don't bother with the Friday either. They get limited holiday, I think, in the US compared to here. So just take that one day off, and then you've got 4-day weekend. So I'm more optimistic about next week.
Absolutely.
Today is option expiry. I know we often talk about this, and the June option expiry is like the quadruple witching, like all the monthly and quarterly index and stock options expiring at the same time. And these are often really big turning points. Go back, have a look at the third Friday of the month for the last 3 or 4 years, and you'll see some really interesting turning points at this particular option expiry. I really like the March, June, September option expiries. I find they can sometimes be the very best for turning points. So maybe there's something, but we haven't pushed to new highs, at least as of today. Yet so far, I think it's like 100 points higher. We need to get to not all-time highs, but local highs. Yeah, maybe we want to kind of look into next week. They might have got slightly short on this ahead of it, but yeah, interested to see what next week has in store.
Yes, for me, I mean, like as a trader, I was looking at sort of, when things were looking flat on Monday, I had a short open on the gold, and for me, it did play out pretty well because sort of gold, XAU, USD did not take out the highs, and we saw it sort of reverse completely here. So for me, as a trader, this was a really good trade.
Yeah, I was surprised really because we had that big ramp up on. If we go to like a daily chart, you'll see that Thursday, Friday on gold had a really nice pump. And then as we move into Monday, you're thinking, being long gold over the weekend maybe makes sense. Tensions didn't boil over the weekend, but they didn't go away either. I mean, things have been pretty rowdy this week. Yet gold couldn't punch those all-time highs. So if gold can't really battle through it, and it's been down all week pretty much. So it was a hell of a pickup. But yeah, really disappointing week for gold bulls. You would have thought, given all the geopolitical tensions between Israel and Iran, now that it looks like that foreign ministers are meeting in Europe to try and find solutions. So there is like a de-escalation attempt, at least on the Iranian side, to try and get this kind of pinned. They have said that they're willing to negotiate some of their uranium enrichment program away, but not all. And I'm not sure if Trump and certainly if Netanyahu will take that as being okay. So yeah, still going to simmer away in the background, no doubt. But yeah, hell of an unwind for gold. But I'm sure a lot of people were thinking all-time highs might be reached this week.
Yeah, no, same. Like I think on Sunday we were speculating, could we take out 3,500? So 3,500 was that sort of target price, but what do we really see? We saw 34,450 get hit, and then from there it's just been reversal. Whilst this was happening, I was sort of keeping an eye on the war conflict to see if there's any more movements there. I kept Trump's Truth Social open. I kept a bunch of things open. I had sort of the fund rates to look into with traders, but I think I had my eyes on the Truth Socials more, like to see if there's any sort of surprises from Trump to see, But actually, like, it's been pretty flat. It really is. It's been one of those things. It's midsummer. Everyone's sort of enjoying their sort of yachts, jacuzzi holidays, and I think that's the way this week's gonna end. And I think maybe next week we see maybe a high taken. What do you think?
I'm not sure. That was disappointing with gold. I would have thought if we were going to do it, this was an opportunity to set up for it. So unless things really double down, right? Unless there's just no way that if Iran just has changed their mind completely and don't want to de-escalate, I feel like the highs could be in for gold. I mean, I did say this when it hit 3,500 that I think it would hit 3,000 before it broke 3,500. So maybe I'm talking up my own book a little bit here. But even objectively looking at it from Monday's action onwards, it's been a real disappointment in terms of a geopolitical hedge trade. So yeah, I'm not certain we'll see it. Yeah, the other thing that's been really flat this week is on the S&P, right? If we look at the SPX on the CBOE, this has been, we talked about this last week, about the 6,000 level being the kind of monthly option expiry kind of max pain level. And as we sit here now, like, look at how many times we've traded. Where are we? 6,000. It's basically every single day for like 2 weeks we've traded this price within 5 points. And that is always an anchor for price, right? When you're going into a big option expiry, it can pin the market. Look, for a while that you might nip up to 6,100, but that was quickly undone. So yeah, I think, like you say, next week I think things are going to be a little bit more lively. So yeah, if it's going to go, maybe next week was the window. I just felt like this week gold could have done that little bit more, but with the stocks having the shackles taken off them from the option market, they're probably going to go hunt for some new levels.
Usually before we see big moves, we see a bunch of consolidation, right? And what do we see here with S&P?
Oh yeah,
complete consolidation.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the anticipation before the big move. So that's how I'm kind of just sort of pricing in the indexes right now. I'm waiting for sort of the consolidation to give hints to see where we go. But yeah, I think as usual, Trump Truth Social is on. Squawk will be on here, and we'll keep updated on all these sort of updates here. But I think right now the S&P sort of consolidating, and even in crypto, it's been the same. In crypto, Bitcoin's been between 104, 105. We see consolidation. We don't see highs or lows get taken.
Yeah.
So we see how this sort of develops. But I think even in consolidation, for new traders, it might seem boring, but for us, we're anticipating.
Yeah, we don't need big moves in the market really to capitalize, right? That's the beauty of being a leveraged trader. You don't need, a stock to double in value to make you any money. You can get like a 10-point move on the S&P and have a pretty good day, right? Absolutely. So you've just got to, at least if you know the context of what you're trading, and then the market that you're in. But this was always, when we were anchored already last week at 6,000 on the S&P, I felt like that was a risk. But yeah, I do feel like we're going to break out of that range next week. Almost certainly. It's too narrow to not happen. Unless it's just dead all summer. See? Do you think we could just be seeing nothing for a month and a half here? Or 2 months now through to the end of August?
Yeah.
I hope not.
I hope not as well, but it's a possibility for sure. I mean, one thing I'm going to do is sort of run through this trade because I think this will sort of give people insights here. So on Monday, we sort of opened up at sort of 35,435 and we wicked 34.50. Right here, this reversal here put me into a trade, and this trade lasted a few days for me. But as we sort of failed to take highs from the 3,500 region, for me it was a complete reversal. So for me, holding out this trade for a few days, I did have to pay a bit of an exchange for the nightly sort of holdings.
The swaps, yeah, they get you.
The swaps get you, but as I saw this sort of leave, it sort of stays there. I never saw it reverse back. So for me, as a trader, right, this is a nice big move.
When did you get out of it?
I got out about Thursday.
Okay.
So Thursday I got out, and that was my sort of highlight for the week.
Well, you're doing well this week to catch a move that big. There hasn't been that much out there. I mean, we got some moves on some of the news events. The Fed, we should probably talk about, was about as non-eventy as a Fed can be. So yeah, you did very well to squeeze that much out of the market. 2% moves. You've not seen too many of those this week.
Yeah. So that comes with experience. But for new traders, they might have not seen this move. They were sort of anticipating other things from federal fund rates. But for me, when gold is sort of taking out highs from last week, and it fails to do it the next week, we normally see reversal. So this is something that with experience, other sort of new traders can start to, look into. So this was one thing. So gold sort of moved in its way here. Now, what was your sort of comments on Fed holding interest rates?
Well, it was a dot plot Fed, so it was one of the more interesting Feds in terms of data, where you get the summary of economic projections, you get the dot plot to kind of see where the voting members would expect, based on current conditions at least, where the rates will be at the end of 2025, 26, 27, and long run. And again, it was higher for longer, or certainly 25, 26. It seemed like a slight nudge up on where they were going to set their rates. I think there were only 4 last time who were thinking no cuts at all this year, now 7. So it's a slight shift. And the markets did react to that. We did see the market sell off not a huge amount on the Fed, but then in the futures it did roll over a little bit in the morning afterwards. So there was maybe a little bit of a movement on it. But yeah, I think it's just kicking the can down the road, right? We're not. It's always a big gap. We got another one in July, but no dot plot. And then there's a big break, or the biggest break that we get on these Fed meetings through the summer until we get into the September meeting. That's the first opportunity. But by then, other things will have changed, right? We've got this, it's not long till this July 9th 3-month tariff kind of pause. So by then, by September, you would expect that we'd have more clarity on what Trump has agreed or not agreed and forced upon these other trading partners. At that point, the Fed will probably be better placed to make decisions. But the inflation numbers aren't high. So the inflation push we thought we would get from Trump tariffs have just not come in, or certainly they've been overestimated by the analysts. And that was kind of the big fear, right? Okay, there's a growth aspect to this too, and GDP wasn't great. We'll find out about that mid-July as well for Q2, if we are in a technical recession in the US. But all this is coming to a head right at the time where Iran have had their 2-week sort of. Trump likes putting dates on things, right?
Yes.
It's gone, right, 2 weeks now. We've got 3 months on this, 2 weeks on that. It's like, very, very salesy. But he's got, all this seems to be coming to a head at around the same time that we're going to get these GDP numbers out. And there's a little cocktail in there. If we don't get the move on this option expiry, maybe mid-July might be another interesting one.
For new traders, I would tell them to look into the fundamentals for the next couple of weeks, because the fundamentals will sort of give you insights into where we sort of go with sort of the Fed, the war, and pricing. Because I think most folks, like especially this week, I had a bunch of traders that were bored. That weren't getting their trades in, and I said when consolidation comes into price, expect the unexpected the week after. So that's what we're doing. We're just anticipating right now. And apart from the gold trade, I wasn't able to, there was a move on Bitcoin. If we can go into Bitcoin here, there was a move on Bitcoin, but it wasn't as anticipating as gold taking out highs. There was this sort of resistance zone here at sort of, that was sort of not taken. So we had a similar move on Bitcoin, but I missed this one for sure. You don't get them all, I guess. But this was also another move on Bitcoin that I could have sort of anticipated. But I mean, apart from that, it's been a good week. What's your comments on the dollar index right now?
Yeah, I mean, the dollar story's not been great this year, right? Since Trump kind of came to power, or at least since his inauguration, we had that little flurry, didn't we? And then it's kind of unraveled a little bit. And where are we kind of getting ourselves on a relatively even keel? I mean, we are, like I say, we're about 2 weeks from this July the 9th print, right? 2 or 3 weeks till this comes to fruition. So I feel like Trump said last week that we're going to get the letters. He's going to start sending letters out to different leaders to tell them the terms of trade that he's demanding that they sign. So when we start hearing these, like, how aggressive are these going to be? I feel like if we start hearing over the next week, which I expect to, about these demands, if they are, anywhere near the original tariff mandate, remember the 98% on Vietnam and all these huge numbers, if they're anything near that, then we could be in trouble again. I think on all markets, dollar down, stocks down. It's not something you see very often, but we saw it a lot then. So I think he would be wise, as we said, all the way back when he did the original U-turn. If he just shuts his mouth, these stocks will go up. Well, boy, did they. Now he's now coming back to the market. And this was this kind of U-turn. I think we were chatting in here saying, just be quiet. Just don't do anything. But now we're in a window where he has to do something again. And we eyed up this kind of month leading into that July 9th. All the way back then, and now we're very close to it. So yeah, I think there's some headwinds, right? Whether we talk about war, whether you talk about the debt refinancing that's going to have to come later in the year, whether you want to talk about the tariffs, which is he going to go super light? Is he going to bail out on this? What do you think? Is he just going to go easy on everyone, 10% across the board?
I think he went hard when he first talked about it, and then since then he's been negotiating his way through it. So I think he's gonna go easy on the crowd. But you also, before the 9th of July, you also have a special day in America, right?
True, yeah, another big week off.
Yeah, you got a week off. You got 4th of July.
Yeah.
So for him, he's got to look good for 4th of July. So I anticipate him relaxing on a few different things.
Okay. Yeah, that's another week which is pretty low on volume, right? So make the most of the next couple of weeks, I would say, as we go into that. Where are we here? So you got next week, and then is it a Friday? It's 2 weeks today, I believe. Yeah, it's a Friday, isn't it, this year? So we've got this week, and then guys, it's gonna be another pretty quiet week. Hopefully the weather holds out and we can get some more golf in. I've got some revenge to take on Brad.
One thing I'll say is most sort of new traders, they have a system and they're looking to scalp their opportunities. Moments like this, when you have consolidation, you look for setups, you look for intraday moves. And I think a bunch of traders, I've been sort of giving them that sort of advice to look into a good trade like I did with gold, right? Because these trades do show up now and then. We've seen it on gold, we've seen it on Bitcoin, and maybe we see that going into next week and the week after. Because the summer, like even last year, we were in the office and it was pretty slow, right? And then you had anticipation for the dot plot, you had anticipation for the federal fund rate and other things. So I think wait for consolidation, take easy setups, and enjoy the summer.
Yeah, it's not been the worst week to not have too much to do trading wise, right? It's been a beautiful week. I know it's been relatively quiet in here. A lot of people have been out enjoying themselves. So, pick your times to trade. Every week is not the same. I think what you've just said there is really insightful, right? If you're seeing these periods of consolidation, and we can kind of anticipate this, and we'll probably anticipate this again around the 4th of July, you're going to get into more rangy, trappy, fewer follow-throughs in the market sort of trades. Well, if that doesn't work for your setup, guess what? Don't trade.
Yeah.
You want to be trying to think about, what does this week potentially have in store? Is my strategy optimal in this environment? If it isn't, find something else to do. Or if it is, great, go ahead and trade as normal. But there'll be a few more weeks in the year that are like this, when the volumes kick down. For the Thanksgiving week's always a really quiet week, and a lot of people in the UK just don't think about this sort of stuff when they're trading. But this is huge for global volumes.
Last year, what I saw was May was a pretty eventful time. June and July was sort of leading up to the elections, right? And then we saw a real movement in the market, I think August, September, October. But before that, the summer was pretty quiet. So I anticipate something similar, because he's here for 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. Do look out for intraday moves. Look for setups. Don't look for scalping. Don't be looking into indicators as much. Look for your setup to rise, and then take it, like I did with gold.
Like it. Should we have a look at the week ahead? Is there anything else you want to cover this week before we jump forward?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look into the week ahead. So coming into Monday, we have
PMI day. Okay,
PMI.
So good day for data on Monday to kind of get us really back on the wagon after a pretty quiet week. So that should get the market pumping. Europe, UK have their numbers out early doors, and then the US do theirs in the afternoon. Got a final GDP read. Are they gonna undo the negative figure maybe on the final read? We shall see. I wouldn't be surprised if some phone calls have been made from Donald regarding that one. Not a huge day of data apart from that. What we're looking at on Friday, it's probably PCE. PCE on late in the month on a Friday is pretty common. So, but inflation's soft. Not a huge week for data. We will be hearing from the Fed members again. They're already out in force. Waller was on the wires today. There's Fed members basically speaking every day next week. So they'll all want to have their 2 cents on what Powell said on Wednesday night, and maybe push back on a couple of comments that he might have made. So maybe the speakers will be more interesting But I'm kind of holding out to hear some of the detail that gets sent in these letters from Trump to his global counterparts.
Also for me, core price index. It shows you sort of the power of sort of the spending power of things. So I want to see if that sort of plays into next week as well. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I think wait for your setups, and just enjoy the summer.
Well, exactly. Let's get the hell out of here. We've been in this office too long today.
Absolutely. Let's call it for this week.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. Enjoy your weekend in the sunshine. Yeah, I've been Chris Pollock.
And me, Zee.
Signing out. Thank you.
Thank you.